think it was around 1977 or 78. My parents were in a Friday night bowling league, and I was left to be taken care of by my older brother. And there was this TV show used to come on late at night on Channel 2 in the Bay Area called Creature Features, hosted by the late great Bob Wilkins. And one of the first films that they ever showed that impacted me was Night of the Living Dead. And up until that point with me and horror, it was Universal monsters, the classics like Dracula and Frankenstein and that type, Godzilla movies. And then this movie happened to come on, and my brother was sitting on the floor playing solitaire, and I watched it, and I remember just sitting there in awe, watching this black and white horror movie unfold before my eyes, and seeing zombies eating people, and it changed horror for me. It took me basically out of the kids stuff and into adult themed horror. My favorite horror movie is Halloween, the 1978 John Carpenter classic, and John Carpenter is also my favorite director. So I love that movie for a lot of the elements that went into it. The shoestring budget at the time, the tight shooting schedule, the story, the mood, the lighting. It's such a great movie that brings forward the element of horror, of that thing in the shadow, that person in the shadow watching you, and then eventually biding their time, and then coming from the darkness and trying to dispatch the heroine played by Jamie Lee Curtis. And that pretty much became the template for horror movies in the 80s. The slasher film, the final girl, the lone heroine, left to face the monster and the killer and that sort of thing. But that film alone stands on the top tier of my favorite list of horror films. And I think that as a filmmaker, studying John Carpenter's career and his style is something that I want to pay homage to, because to me it's a really kind of practical type of filmmaking that was and still is very effective today. Urban native horror is a genre that I created, which is bringing Native American legend into an urban environment, taking some of those stories that I heard when I was a kid and pretty much thinking what would happen if something like this got into an urban area, like what would happen to the people it was after, or the environment in which it settles into. And there's a lot of things that come with bringing that sort of style to modern day horror. And I think one of the things is respect for the tribes and the ancestors and the elders who told these stories. And you don't really want to show too much, because then it kind of loses its mystique, its aura of terror and mystery. I think you want to kind of keep that genie in the bottle, so to speak. But I would really like to show responsibility when I bring this genre up to the surface, because it comes from me. I'm the one telling it, and I think that ultimately I have to gain trust from my own people to bring this kind of genre forward, because after all, it can't be really told by one person. It's told by a multitude of people, and for one person like myself to take responsibility for it, that's huge. And I have to be respectful, and I have to gain the trust and show discipline too when I bring this forward into mainstream society. I think that it's important because you look at a lot of films that are coming out in horror, and you just kind of see the same stories just recirculated, rebooted, reimagined, re-envisioned, what have you. And some of them succeed, and some of them should have just stayed as is. But I think that original horror, Native American horror that no one has ever seen yet, I think that's the boogeyman that's waiting in the dark, ready to spring into action. So I can't wait to see what happens when it breaks the surface and actually gets to rear its head. Oh man, what legends scared me as a kid? A lot of them I heard from my grandma on my dad's side, on the Washoe side of our family. And I think that one of the ones that really scared me was the legend of this bird, this giant bird that nests in the peaks of the Sierras, called Ong. And Ong would come down and take cattle and horses, and just basically fly overhead looking for things to take and to its nest. And I think one of the stories that really scared me was she told me about this time when she was driving back from Reno to Carson City, and that's a 40-mile stretch of highway. And she would drive that to go into Reno and gamble. And on the way back, she said she kept feeling this wind, like this huge bird or something was over her. And she said that at one point it was grabbing the top of her car, and it kind of tried to force her off the road. And I remember her telling us this story at night. It had to be at night. So, anytime there was a big gust of wind, she would say, "Oh, that must be Ong." Ong's flying overhead. And so, anytime we would go stay at my grandma's house in Carson City, Nevada, and we'd hear a gust of wind or driving along, and the wind would move the car, it's like, oh my God, I'm about to shit my pants right now. But I think it's stories like that are really, to me, the quintessential roller coaster ride of emotion. When you think about horror. And I love those old stories, and I remember them. I wrote them down, and those are the kind of things that I think I hold true, because they were told to me by someone I respected and someone I loved very much and believed. And I think that those stories are the most important, because they're word of mouth. We didn't have to go to the theater to see them. They were told to us, and the visuals that we created in our minds, I think that was scarier than anything that could ever be put on screen. I'm a storyteller at heart. I like to tell stories. A lot of my friends that, some of them that wouldn't be allowed to go see rated R movies would wait for me to go and see them so I can go sit on the playground with them at school and tell them about what I saw. And a lot of the times I would have just like this group of kids around me sitting there telling them, because I get animated when I tell stories. And they really love that. And then when they finally got to see it, they were like, oh man, it wasn't as good as when you told it. So that kind of, made me feel real good that I'm a good storyteller, I guess. But wanting to take all these stories and put them on film was a dream that I've had ever since I was a young man. What would it be like to put one of my movies, one of the things I know, put it on screen and have people, cringe in their seats and scream and run out of the aisles and that sort of thing. And when I started developing stories to want to put on film, my mind went in 20 different directions. The film always changed, the story, the characters, and then it was kind of hard to like buckle down on one thing and make it kind of like a linear project. How do you get from A to point C, where B, your character changes, that sort of thing. And so I sharpened up my skills and went to Columbia College Chicago, and first went there with a desire to be a computer animator, because when I saw those CGI films, animation, I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. And then you get to school and you realize, wow, that's a lot of work. So I remember going to a panel discussion with director Brad Bird, who did the Iron Giant and Ratatouille. among other projects. And he said that the most respected position at, you know, film company, animation companies is the screenwriters, the story, because without the story you wouldn't have everything else. So I started to focus on screenwriting and went at that full speed. You know, I wanted to learn the art of screenwriting, so I just was so into it in school, and wrote several stories and shorts that got me the grades, but it also caught the attention of a lot of my instructors that were like, wow, this guy, you know, he really has a way of putting things into words. And so I started developing a lot of short stories and kept them in a binder, my vault, and they're just kind of waiting there, you know, waiting there to be told. And then I thought to myself, like, why not make a film? You know, if you have the means and the resources, make a film. So I kind of got my ideas together and developed a script and a shooting schedule. Got a good group of people, and we came together and we shot the Smudging. The Smudging is a very special film to me because number one, it's my first, and number two, it's based on actual events that happened inside the former American Indian Center of Chicago. And as an employee there back in early 2000s, I was the youth program coordinator in that facility, and a lot of my kids in the youth program would see things in the building, and you know, you just kind of, you know, say, okay, that's just kid stuff, you know, it's just kids playing pranks on each other, what have you. But then when you see something and you start experiencing things in that building, it opens your eyes up to a whole new thing. And so I started taking notes, and then elders and community members and I would sit there and you know, talk about things that they've seen or heard in the building, and I asked their permission to kind of compile stories. And so I first developed the story back in 2007. I wanted to shoot the film at the American Indian Center, but was instructed by the community medicine man to not do it. The reasoning is because there are some things that were in that building that he felt I shouldn't muddy the waters, basically. So I backed off the project for 8 years, and then revisited it in 2015, and with the help of a group of young people, friends of mine and co-workers, I pitched the project to them, and they were just on board right away. And then I went to the executive director of the Indian Center, and I asked him respectfully if I can shoot my film. The community was more than supportive of it, and it just really encouraged me to move forward with it. So I went and saw this independent horror film that just blew up, called It Follows. And that night I went to a restaurant right after that, grabbed a stack of napkins and a pen, and just started writing out, brain dumped all my idea of the smudging on these napkins, and went home, and by, I'd say, 3 in the morning, I had about 30 pages of script written for my film. And then within a couple weeks, we had a meet and greet with the actors, and we did a script read, a table read, and it was just, everybody was, oh my God, they were just so ready to do it. And I was ready to shoot that day, but had to get a bunch of stuff together and secure schedules and locations and all that stuff that goes with filmmaking. And within about 3 weeks after the meet and greet, cameras were rolling, and we just really had a good time. And yeah, you know, I feel it's an important film, not only for the horror genre, but for Native American people as well, because it tells our story in a facility that is ours. You know, it's our home. Some of us look to American Indian Centers as our home. We grew up there. That's our second home. mine's in Oakland, California, called the Inner Tribal Friendship House, and I grew up there. A lot of my brothers grew up there, and my friends, and it's still in function today. And there were stories from there too. I think every Indian center across the country has stories that of the supernatural, and I think that those stories are important because they're part of our history and our history of the modern age, you know, in an urban setting, which, you know, kind of alludes to urban native horror. So yeah, it's important for me to tell this story because it's not just my story. It's a story about other people's involvement there. It's a story about things that went on prior to us being in that building. And I think that the best part about it is it belongs to us. You know, it's our story. You know, it's our urban native horror story. Oh man, it took us 7 months to make it, from April 2015 to November 2015, shooting on Fridays and Saturday nights at the Indian Center. From 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. they let us have the building as long as we didn't break anything, and especially ourselves, you know, and just kind of got the run of the building. So I picked out some of the most scariest spots. You know, there was all kinds of nooks and crannies in that building that were just like, wow, you know, this place is a virtual maze. If you didn't know your way around there, you easily get lost around the next corner. So we took 7 months to shoot it, and I would say that I really missed those nights with my cast and crew. I mean, they were just so remarkable, professional, you know, first time actors, never acted before. And I think that their trust in me and their belief in the project and the discipline they showed, to me, was remarkable. I mean, I would so love to work with them again. You know, I miss them, you know. We still keep in contact, even though I'm here in Los Angeles and they're still in Chicago. But hopefully in the future we can get together and do another shooting, maybe another follow-up to the smudging. And because once again, I love them all. You know, we became a family working together, and I think that I don't know if I can ever find another crew like that again. You know, they were really great people, and I really miss them, and hopefully look forward to working with them again. Oh man. There was one night where we were working on a scene on the 3rd floor of the Indian Center. You know, it's really dark in this huge sports annex, which is this huge room, and the only light was from our flashlights and from these dim red exit signs above the doors. And I didn't notice this at first until post-production. We were shooting a scene and went through without a hitch. You know, we did a few takes here and there, but it was really good, effective scene in the film. And then just recently, I was going over the film, which I usually do before I show it at film festivals. And I was watching that particular scene, and I noticed that in one of the doorways of that area, that there was someone or something standing there watching us. And you can clearly see it on film. I slowed the film down, brightened it up, and the way that it's angled, the way this figure is angled, there was no way it's a reflection from any of the actors that were up there. There was myself and 3 other actors and the camera operator, and there was no way that at that angle that could have cast a shadow in that area. And then in the film, you not only see it once, but you see it's there 2 times. And the second time that you see it, it moves out of the way of the doorway. It moves on the other side. There was nobody up there with us that night because all the doors were locked. Any location we shot in, we made sure the doors were locked, and the only people in that room were the principals and the camera operator. And there was no way that was something, I would say, alive or human or what have you. But I do firmly believe, as the rest of us do that viewed that footage again, that we actually captured an entity at the American Indian Center in that film. And the part that's really cool is that that scene is left in the actual film. So when you see the smudging, that scene is in the film, and it's not been altered. It's just shown as we filmed it. So if you catch it, you catch it. But as far as I don't know, this may be the first actual horror film where something supernatural was actually caught on camera. The Smudging first premiered May 21st at the Patio Theater in Chicago, Illinois, and man, the line was around the block. You know, we've been pumping this film up, and everybody knew we were doing it the whole time we were shooting it, and they couldn't wait to see it. I mean, to be a filmmaker inside setting up, and when it's getting close to doors open, and you go outside or rather someone comes in and says, dude, man, there's a line around the theater. And then you're like, okay. Then that's when really heart starts pumping, and you're just like, wow, you know, okay, here we go. It's almost time. Let's get it done. Let's see what these people think. Doors open, crowd rushes in, everybody gets their snacks. The theater has a very good crowd. It's about 200 people in this theater, and oh man, just watching them watch this film and seeing their reactions, their laughs, and and them screaming, you know, and just enjoying this film, you know, and it was such a fulfilling moment for me that oh God, and to hear, you know, to get tweets and to get, you know, Facebook messages and emails, people really loved it, and you know, we can't wait to see what you got next, and doing Q&As after each screening and seeing just the questions, and people just, you never get tired of answering the same question over and over again, you know, and because so many people want to know so much, and you only have this little bit of time to tell them, and it just makes me feel like I'm finally, like my dream is finally coming to the surface, you know, it's finally happening, and you know, slow and steady wins the race. You know, I don't think I would be having much fun if I just blew up and became, you know, bam, you know, Spielberg status. And I think it would be a lot less fun because you're working on a schedule. You're on a tight schedule. But I think with the process I like doing it, and the process that my cast and crew liked doing it was a good pace. You know, gave us time to actually really settle into our roles and responsibilities, and I think that's what counted. But man, just the reactions of people that see this film, it's always good to sit in the back and know exactly what's going to happen, and when their reactions, and you're just kind of like sitting back there with your cast and crew, and you're just like, yes, you know, yeah, we did, that's it, that's the stuff right there. So yeah, I'm so glad that the people that have seen it thus far just have loved it and appreciate the work that went into it. Right now I'm working on 3 film projects of mine. One of them is called, it's a short film, it's called The Ghost Box, and that one should be done shooting by December of 2018, and then I get started this summer on I'm gonna take a stab at doing something with a little comical edge called Trickster, and that one, I wrote that script in a day, and I won't reveal what what that one's about, but I just want people to see it and appreciate it and hopefully laugh at it, laugh at my stupidity on film. So, and then I'm doing another feature called Mashego. And Mashego is a Washa word that means like boogeyman or spirit or entity. And that film is also going to be filmed in a faux documentary style, where myself and my brother are going to find out if this thing is real through eyewitness testimonials and footage on camera. We're going to see if this thing is real and find out if there's any truth to Native American legends like the Mashago or whatever else we could find along the way. So yeah, just stay posted, and hopefully that I can deliver a lot more things that you guys like. And thank you very much, everybody, for your support and your encouragement. And yeah, I just got to keep on keeping on. And just remember to keep your lights close.